Hey, welcome to Heroes Out. I'm Paul,
And I'm Patrick.
and we're
And
just
we are Heroes Out talking to you about our favorite TV shows when we were kids. I almost
yeah,
forgot. I was going to say, what age were we? When we were kids. So anything classifies as kid, Paul, for me, because I'm still a kid in many, many ways. And I think as we talk, you'll see some of these TV shows I still watch. I go back and watch some stuff from when I was a kid. And I'm not ashamed and I'm not embarrassed. I just a great choice when I was younger.
yeah. No, I think I'm very the same kind of thing. I think a lot of these shows I'm really kind of like, yeah, I watch them every Christmas or something, or there's a time when I'll like get a tiny hint of one from like a YouTube compilation thing or something. I'll be just like, I gotta watch that again, you know?
Yeah. And you know what? We should point out that this was a viewer requested topic. And I think it's a great question. So, what did we watch when we were kids? It says a lot about who we are. We'd love to hear from you in any topic, particularly on this one. If you want to go to the comments down below and drop in your favorite things that you watched when you were a kid. And while you're on your way back up, maybe swing past a like and a subscribe and getting that in early today. And I didn't even say tickle the analytics, but let's tickle those YouTube analytics together.
You just
100%
did.
record, Paul. 100%
It
record.
definitely seems that way. Definitely, 100%. Which is okay. So, do we
Kick
want
me
to
off,
do
man.
this? I was going to say, do we want to do this as a animation and live action, or which way we just want to just shoot that out there?
I don't think we should be showing any prejudice against animation. It's they're all TV shows to me.
Okay.
And I think realistically, if we're going to talk about when we're kids, it's when you're really little that you start watching TV that, you just whatever is on, you're going to watch it, particularly back in the day when there was a lot less choice. But you had your favorites, and you were there were the ones where you were like, I can't wait for Saturday morning at 9:30, or this is on at 6:30 on a Sunday or whatever it is. That's the formation of at a very young age. I remember kind of going, I like some things more than I like others very seriously.
Hmm.
Sometimes you're like, oh yeah, this is good, that's good, this is good, that's good. But then there were I'm into this story and I want to keep watching more and more of this.
Yeah, yeah, and then you go down the thread of trying to when you're older, remembering that. Oh yeah, these are series, but they're on TV, which means that there's episodes that I have never seen on these. So you kind of,
Exactly.
um, I'm
Or
gonna
like
yes.
Transformers the cartoon, saw completely out of order. Then
Mm,
saw Transformers the movie, the animated movie, at a friend's house and cried. Uh, Spoiler alert from 1984. Optimus Prime dies, and it's the first time that most children got together and cried.
yeah, and then
How can you kill somebody in a kids animated thing by being brilliant about it? That's how I thought it was a brave move, and I'm glad they taught me at a young age. Don't get too attached, folks. Things leave.
they have yeah, because he also he goes pretty yeah, he goes pretty
Yeah,
early on
sorry.
in that film. Um, just to also put it, the Pokemon film, the one from the '90s as well, was also bold in a sense, and like had a death, but then had a resurrection
Oh,
in it, and it was
oh,
very emotionally kind of like. I remember watching it and was just like, "Holy shit!"
oh yeah. It's when you're a kid and looking over at I remember looking at my friend Gary, kind of going, but he's going to come back, right? He's going to come back, and there's tears, and his brothers were in the room of varying ages, and I was like, man, they killed Optimus Prime. I've only ever seen 4 episodes of the Transformers cartoon because I think that's all the national broadcaster here had. So
Yeah,
you kept seeing the same episodes over and over again, but it was Transformers, and I was like 6 or whatever. So yeah, it was emotional. I wouldn't say it was my favorite TV show as a kid, but that answers your question. Can animation be included? If it can make you cry, it can
oh,
be included.
I just meant that we're going to do it as categories. Are we going to do
Yeah.
favorite live action and favorite animation, or are we just going to mug them all together?
Oh, geez.
Perfectly
Well,
happy.
you let me know. And there will be times when our age gap becomes apparent to the audience. I would like to remind you all to keep your snickering to a minimum, and let's be kind in the comments, okay? Old people need love too.
Yeah. When I show you my age, it's going to be real bad. Like Patrick's the young one.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
I'm going to say so. I'm going to kick us off. I'll kick us off with not. It's not my favorite, but I will. It is fondly remembered and also a heavy influencer and probably my future.
Ooh,
Is around the twist.
what was that?
Oh, is it around the bend? I need to.
Around the
This is
bend. Oh, Who
It
was in it,
was
and we'll work this together?
so it was
Or
about
what was it about?
people who lived in a lighthouse, and some crazy kind of stuff happened. But it was a kids show, and it was kind of like I thought it was around the bend.
It
Um,
could be.
yeah, so
I'm gonna write
you
that.
you look it up while I talk about it. So yeah, it was kind of like a kind of I guess a paranormal event of the week kind of show. Um, so like it was either there's one with the mummy chasing them around the thing. There's also like teleportation ones and time travel and stuff like that. It was a very kind of weird show. Which is but yeah, it was essentially
Were there hand puppets in it?
not that I remember of.
Then it's not around the bend, or maybe it is. Do you know
That
what?
could just be that could be an episode that happened to it. So I'm just gonna
You know what
um
the cool thing about this is? About 20 people have already written it in the comments below by now what it actually is. But it sounds intriguing. The name isn't that important. I'm just trying to work out if I've seen it. I shouldn't have got hung up on the name. But the idea of a lighthouse where mad things happen, you said it may also influence your future. Is it because you might live in a lighthouse someday, or because mad things might happen to you?
it was no, it was because because it was like that kind of like paranormal kind of thing. Because it was like the paranormal thing of the week and stuff like that. It
Hmm.
had like I think it influenced me in kind of like going towards more kind of like I guess paranormal kind of like things in the future, and I definitely think that it probably led me towards like even a best of Lovecraftian kind of universe as well, kind of thing,
Oh wow,
and a lot of that kind of stuff. Like so, like it definitely influenced me to kind of I guess go towards more yeah fantastical kind of like supernatural and
that's really
um
cool.
so yeah, like that's it was an influencer. So I decided that I'd point it out. It's not my favorite, but an
No,
influencer in kind
that's
of
interesting, and yeah, so it's interesting that you can draw it back to maybe you're in because you have more of an interest in horror movies than I do, and part of that would be the paranormal also. So it's interesting that it could have come, or at least its genesis was in a good kind of story of the week TV show, because that's great. I miss kind of story of the week shows as opposed to the constant serialized everything now.
yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
I get it.
Oh,
It
that's
was
very
round
cool.
round the twist. It was the film or the TV
Round the
show. Yeah.
twist.
The
Huh.
adventures of a father and his two children who live in an old lighthouse, and this randomly kind of stuff happens.
And it sounds like it was, that's a sweet description, if you know what I mean. But it sounds like it would have had to rely pretty much on story because, okay, Lighthouse, interesting location, but you're not talking massive budget, big cast, and it's not like pure massive sci-fi. So, bit of good storytelling. That's your Twilight Zone right there. Twilight Zone
Yeah,
for kids. Things happening once a week.
pretty much. Yeah, actually, yeah, it would be pretty much, except for in it's just it's the same family over and over again, kind of thing, you know. So
Cool. Well, that's one that influenced you. I'm trying to think of what I watched that influenced me. I would. Everybody is screaming at the computer that knows me or at their phone, however you're watching this. Oh, I'll bet you it'll be something to do with cars. It'll be like 18 because of the truck, or Knight Rider because of the car. Or I could end up just listing about 10 TV shows that had cars in them because let's face it, I grew up in the ultimate car TV show era with Dukes of Hazard, even motorcycles, Street Hawk, Automan. I'm now just starting to list them. But no, they weren't a huge influence on me for the whole liking cars thing. I
hmm
liked them because I already was fascinated with automobiles. In fact, in the A team, the one that I wanted to be or the one that I liked most was Murdoch because I was into helicopters. Like I thought helicopters were cool. Even though BA had the really cool van and Face had the really cool Corvette and Hannibal got driven around the place. I don't think he needed a car. He
yeah,
had the plan. Hannibal gets driven.
mm, pretty much.
But I would say the one that kind of influenced me in the kind of what I like would have been MASH. I probably watched MASH at way too young an age, in a weird way, because it's quite heavy,
Yeah.
but quite funny in equal measure. And I really, 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 from quite a young age, I knew that some of it was going over my head, and then as I got older, less of it went over my head. But I really knew something was going on. I knew some of the jokes even back then were a bit one-dimensional.
Yeah. Ooh,
They were the ones I
okay.
laughed at when I was little, and then as
Yeah,
I got
yeah.
older, it was like, This is about war. Good MASH, for anybody who hasn't seen it, is it's about a medical unit in the Korean War, and it's about the wacky zany doctors. Imagine Scrubs and Apocalypse Now having a baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never thought I'd describe MASH as Scrubs and Apocalypse Now having a baby.
Hey, once again, our one line kind of review seems to be coming in.
That's true.
Yeah, like MASH. I think it sounded for like medical ambulance service, like or military ambulance service and health or something. Hospital. Yeah.
Hospital. It's
yeah, something. But it was. That's a really good one because that's a comedy gold one with a big kind of like set of kind of drama and heart to it. Man, that's a really good. Like I remember watching it as well. It was on Sky One when I was around. And yeah, it was one of those kind of. I think it was the theme song that got me.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Well, we're not going to be able to talk about childhood shows without talking about theme songs.
It's true
Because
yeah,
they're such a huge part of it back then, particularly.
Yeah, I don't. Shows don't have that anymore.
No, and to MASH, here's our bit of trivia. "Suicide is Painless" is the name of that song. MASH originally was a Robert Altman film, and it's quite a dark song with quite a nice kind of melody. But when they did the TV show, they kept the song. They did the whole thing. But it was Robert Altman's 14-year-old son that wrote that song, and it's really dark. And some people say nonsensical. I say listen to it, and there's a bit of scary sense to it. And it's called "Suicide is Painless," and it was melancholic in the right way. But then it was a TV show that, dads of a certain generation could sit back and just laugh at the funny doctor making the funny joke.
Yeah.
And then, teens, when I was, watching it towards the end, well, maybe just preteen, I guess, who were crying at the horror of war and about the deep loss and tragedy that is humanity in those desperate situations.
Yeah.
It had a lot going on. So it influenced me to like really complex but really simple things that are done together. There's still the movies where I'm like, I love an action movie that's actually got a lot going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. No, I can definitely understand why you do that because or why we would be drawn towards the MASH kind of thing. It's got the surface kind of level to it, and then it's got a couple of layers deeper to it that really kind of influence or kind of really show you the chops of kind of like this is something that everybody can enjoy in more engaging ways and stuff like that. So that's cool.
And it taught me one other thing as a kid, because one of the main characters, Alan Alda, the main doctor, he was there, but his kind of his sidekick, his bunkmate, changed halfway through. Honeysuckle, what was it? Huckabee. And now the names are messed up in my head, but they changed actor and they changed character. And that was a thing for me. That was like, I hadn't really seen that before either. It's like, wow. Yeah. So you can actually have characters come and go in a TV show. That's strange. Because again, I'd been watching, Transformers, the cartoon, or A-Team. Don't get me wrong, A-Team had people come and go, I guess, because they did that one bad season, but let's never talk about that, where they had like Cousin Whatever. And I know Dukes of Hazzard did the same thing, where it was actually Cousin Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for a kid that was watching Magnum PI thinking I wanted to be Tom Selleck, except I secretly wanted to be, TC with a helicopter, MASH was I'm getting older, I can understand good TV.
Yeah. No, I get that. Like, that's really cool. It's a good influencer one or kind of like one to remember. Because I'm gonna break into the more classical of kind of I guess TV shows. Unless there's more, do you want to talk?
No,
about
please,
MASH?
no. I'm throwing. I'm waiting to hear your next, and I bet your next one will have a great theme tune too. Because I just mentioned Magnum, MASH. What else I have? A-Team, all great theme tunes. What's your next one?
I'm gonna say another,
and it doesn't have to.
It's just another influencer, which is Next Generation.
And that is a great theme tune.
Yeah, like it.
Yeah,
it was a big influencer because it was probably one of the first sci-fi TV shows that I properly watched when I was younger.
Yeah.
So like it really did influence you. Like I do consider myself on the fringes of the Trekkie fan base. Like I know certain elements of the not like of the lore and stuff like that, but not there's people who definitely know way more than I do.
Yeah. I think we're probably in that same area, if you know what I mean. Like I'm huge into Trek, but I'm not enough to say that I'm I'm enough into track to compete with the people who really are.
Yeah, like I guess we could hold our own in a lot of conversations, but there's some knowledge that we just will never hold.
Yeah, it's
But yeah,
true. Great
that's
show though.
like that's the one that kind of influenced me with the sci-fi shows kind of stuff. Like it wasn't the first sci-fi show I kind of watched, but like as in more kind of like obviously sci-fi. Because to
Yeah,
me, Round the Twist all is technically sci-fi, but would be more kind of like as fantasy or fantastical to me at that time. Whereas sci-fi or like Star Trek was like, this is what sci-fi is, and I was like, cool, this is really cool, you know. Um,
and it, like the just because we both had track kind of, because I would have definitely had that in my mind as influential TV shows and TV shows I loved as a kid.
mhm.
The It was great for a big cast, ensemble cast, because one of like when I think sci-fi, and maybe one of the things that I watched when I was a kid that I really stuck with was Quantum Leap. I loved Quantum
Mhm.
Leap. Small cast though, compared
Yeah.
to the big expansive nature of the Next Generation. I'd watched some of the original series, but again, shown out of order. I might have seen the same episode 8 times and never seen some others until I was in my 20s when I could get my hands on them all. But
Yeah, like
Next Generation, watched it. I remember watching the very first episode. I was in my brother's new house at the time, and it was like, wow, this is changing the game.
can I put you on the spot and ask you, do you
Yeah.
remember what the name of the first generation, the first
Mission to
episode is?
Farpoint.
Yeah, part one. Yeah.
Yeah, of course I
Yeah.
do. Yes,
I'm
of
just
course I
I'm
do.
just asking
No,
because a
no,
lot of people, because it's one of those things that's interesting. Not to bring it kind of out of, but like
go for it.
Firefly, the first episode, the actual pilot, was not shown on TV first. It was Train Job, which is the second
Yep.
episode.
Yeah.
That they thought it was a lot easier. Like they were just like, oh, you don't need to
Dummies.
know these characters, that kind of way. Yeah,
Yeah. Have
like
you tried watching it in the order that it was shown? Because I actually, because I watch Firefly at least once a year. One of the years I watched it in the release order, and you're like, of course this lost people. What the what he's doing? It's nonsensical that
because
they
it
threw things out of
goes,
order.
yeah, because it goes Train Job, then the pilot.
I think it was Strange Up something else than the pilot. I think, but I would cede to you there because I can't remember. I remember just looking it up and doing it.
Because I thought that it was the Train Job, and
It was definitely first the train job.
yeah, and then it was the pilot. Because they were just like, we want to just show the action of everything instead of in any way show anyone's actual fucking story or
Yeah,
background or get them used to any of the characters. Like, because
yeah.
I first watched it in order, as in the pilot, the first episode, and then through the normal kind of series.
Oh, me
But
too. Yeah,
then I heard about the fact that that Train Job was done first, and was just like remembering back, going like, what the, like you're introduced
well,
to so many people in that show, like
in
in that
fairness, Paul,
episode.
it's not like that studio had looked into one of the greatest TV shows ever made by a collection of people that will probably never be as lucky to be assembled in that way again, led by somebody who was a genius at their prime. It's not like any of all those good things were going for them. Like, they had to do something to make sure it was a success.
Yeah.
Idiots. Oh
Um,
man, it still makes me angry. Yeah.
yeah, but I always thought, because I know I'm not sure, because Next Generation has their several, like I do know that several people do say that Farpoint Station is not the first episode. Like as in the
Oh.
first episode that they've seen, they saw
Oh.
some other episode first, and like they are diehards in the sense that they say it is the first episode, when it's just like, no, it's not. Far mission, like the Far Point Station is the first part one and part two. It's the first one that you see. It's the
Yeah.
one. It's probably my most hated episode because the amount of times that I've seen it.
Oh, right. I know what you
Not
mean.
because it's bad or anything. It's just because I've oversaturated myself with that episodes.
Well, I watched it on a TV station that isn't even called what it was called then. I watched it on what was our national broadcasters Network 2, which has been renamed now. And it was on a small TV sitting on a chair because the room I was in was not fully furnished because, like I said, it was my brother's new digs. And I was away from home, it was in another city. And I was like, but tonight at this time, the new Star Trek thing is going to be on. Can we watch it? Can we watch it? Because as the kid, you didn't necessarily get to choose what we watch. So you
Yeah,
only ever begged and pleaded for the really important ones, and it was
Yeah.
really important to me. Oh man, yeah, it'll stay with me for life. Although weirdly, all of our rewatches, you forget just how mad some of them are. And like I'd forgotten until you reminded me about Beverly Crusher Sex Ghost.
No, so this is the thing: is you reminded me of Beverly Sex Ghost because I didn't
Oh,
remember it. I reminded you of the very un PC episode with the very
y-
misogynistic tribal people, which is one of those kind of episodes you're just like, oh man, I really hope that they just
yeah.
forget about this one.
This is not what Gene Roddenberry really set out to do. That was very much not for the ethos of the creation of Star Trek.
Yeah, it's very misogynistic people, and you're just like, and it's very
Look, they can't all be winners. They can't
well,
all
no,
be winners.
it's also in the first it's the first season as well, so they're probably trying to throw a wider net on everything. So
Well,
like,
they weren't even sure if they were going to have Deanna Troy in a mini dress at that stage still,
yeah,
because pants weren't allowed in space for women at that point. That still stands out as a bit weird when you look back at those early episodes. It's like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah, like, and the only yeah, and I think it's just a tie off from probably because it's so close to Star Trek
yeah,
when the majority of the female crew members didn't wear like they wore those weird kind of one piece dress things, which is also weird because you're just like, how do anyone do anything in those? Like, though I did enjoy.
it,
Sorry,
oh, go on. Yeah, no.
uh,
I was
I
just going, yeah, ugh.
I did enjoy that some episodes had male characters in them as well. Like, which was kind of like, I guess Star Trek is trying to show the fact that not
Yeah.
everybody would
Feels like a cover up when they did that though. It feels like, oh, we've made a mistake, and it felt like that little bit of backpedal. But who knows? Who knows? Fair play to them. Look, I think I'm glad you brought it up because there's no list of favorite shows when I was a kid that could be mentioned without saying Star Trek Next Generation.
yeah,
And it's weird that's not weird, but it's great that that's the same for both of us. And I think that's probably the same for half a generation before me and maybe a couple of generations even after you, because it was so good and it
hmm
lasted so long, and people went back and discovered it as kids, and a lot of people show kids, younger brothers or sisters or kids that they've had, they show it as, here's a good introduction to big universal sci-fi with an optimistic spirit to it.
yeah, yeah. Like it led me into a lot of more sci-fi, and so I really thank it
Yeah.
for it. You know.
Do you know what it made me think of just a second ago though? Do you know what didn't? And I have to admit I saw before that. Uh, it's something else to do with extraterrestrials. An alien life form. An alien life form. I currently have him. You've been in my house. I have him stuck to the back window of my car at one point. Alf. I watched Alf as a kid, the alien life form, ALF, and I loved Alf. And I'm sure it doesn't stand up if you go and do a rewatch. I'm sure there's some really inappropriate stuff there now that's going to be problematic in today's in now times. But man, as a kid, it cuddly, fluffy, lots of things, sarcastic, almost just a real bad stand-up comedian vibe to it too. I loved that
Mm,
show. I absolutely loved it when I was little.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say there's another. Well, it's your turn to kind of, I guess, choose your next kind of like, I guess, influential or favorite film or TV show that when
Well,
you were a kid.
I
So,
suppose then I'll throw in Alf as that one. But
oh,
if I'm
okay.
going to pick one to get stuck with, I'd rather pick Moonlighting. And I'm going to thank my sister for this because Moonlighting was Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd, which by day they were, she owned a detective. He's a detective. I can't even remember. It's like a private detective agency,
Yeah.
but it was real. Will they? Won't they? It was a real Ross Rachel thing
Okay.
between the two of them. But my sister, obviously, because everybody did, this was Bruce Willis with hair, everybody, like full on hair too.
Mm.
He was wisecracking, smarmy smart. It's what shot his career into the point where he could do Die Hard.
Hmm.
Uh, it was funny and he was cheeky. And I was glad to be watching it because I usually hated everything that my sister liked. because she had awful taste in things, and I don't want to watch Grease when I'm 4. You know, it's like,
Yeah,
why? What? There's, Transformers is on the other channel. What the hell's going on? But
yeah.
Moonlighting, I could agree on, because he was a suave, cheeky little monkey, and I thought Sybil Shepherd was the classiest, coolest woman in the world. So there was a lot of glamour, and it was like, ooh, this is fun, and it was on a little bit later, so I was watching almost adult stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Moonlighting, I'll get stuck with that one.
That sheds the watershed moment sort of thing where you're just like
It would have
you
been
get
just
closer and
pre, but
closer. Yeah, like you get
yeah,
closer and closer as you get older and older, and then eventually you get that one day where you're just like, yes.
yeah, I beat bedtime.
Um, yeah, I'm gonna say because if I'm gonna jump in there and just be like, so in
Mm.
that kind of in that kind of area of things, I'm gonna say another influential one, which would be my comedy kind of choice. Now, like my favorite one is also a comedy one, so you'll see probably the influence and stuff like that. But that's Mork and Mindy with Robin
Fucking working
Williams.
Mindy.
Yeah, like
Oh,
like that was a big. I would sit down, like my parents would know that I would every time Mork and Mindy and stuff like that. I knew when it was on, and I'd be like, "We're watching it," and like
and
it's
I should point out to people that we didn't compare notes at all before this, so we're kind of not stealing each other's, but the wee ones where it's like, would definitely that was on my list. So yeah,
yeah,
Mork and Mindy's a genius pick. I'm so glad you said it.
yeah,
So
like
glad you
it's
said
like on a quicker vein to that, it probably would be Married with Children as well, but
it. On my list.
it's not. You can take that one because
No, no.
it was later for me for probably Married with Children, but Mork and Mindy was very much like I'd be quite young and but sitting down every time it came on and watching everything like um
He was electric. Like Robin Williams was just a lovable, non-dangerous yet electric. He grabbed your eyeballs and made you watch the screen. You followed him around the little TVs that we had back then.
mhm.
It was wonderful, and so
Yeah.
was Mindy. Was
The whole
um,
show was amazing, was just a really amazing thing because at that point I was very much into I guess kind of slapstick comedy kind of stuff, and Mork and Mindy kind of was always on the verge of both. It was very
yeah,
there's very kind of adult humor there as well as also like the kind of slapstick stuff, and I think at that point like my comedic chops were slowly or my I was breaking or what is this breaking your teeth on it.
yeah. You were
I
you,
was
you were
like sorry, yeah.
no. I was saying you were just getting into it. You were
I
warming up to it all.
Yeah, I think that's where kind of it started influencing me with kind of realizing the kind of more adult kind of like sorry, it's not so much adults, but yeah, there was this was the verge of my kind of like getting some of the jokes that were more kind of older than I should have probably.
Yeah. Well, I think because like Robin Williams treated it like, and I know he had him on the show because he played, he was in a bunch of episodes. Jonathan Winters, the one of the world's greatest kind of improv comedians, who Robin Williams obviously idolized and got him on the show. Uh, it was the feeling of danger, even if the joke wasn't that adult. His way of going about it, there was a high wire act to some of his comedy in between the hey, it's over here and there it is, and a little bit of slapstick and a bit of physical comedy, and then the innuendo built into it, and that sense that it really was also slightly improv on top of it. So there was just an air that the camera was still sucking in and transmitting into Holmes.
Hmm.
Yeah, it stands out in its own when it comes to that as far as comedy. And I've decided what I'm going to mention next because you got there first. I will say, and I can get my Married with Children thing out of the way really early, because Married with Children and Who's the Boss have two things in common. I hate to admit it, but let's face it, we're talking about when we were kids and we're growing up and becoming older. And I was very attracted to Alyssa Milano because she was the same age as me. And it was the first time I thought, that girl would be fun to play with. She seems really nice. And then as she got older, I got older, and I was like, that girl would be fun to play with. She seems really nice. And then there was, Married with Children. I'm watching it, laughing my head off, and growing up at the same rate as Christina Applegate. And they were pushing a certain agenda then, the attractive daughter thing or whatever. And it was part of the joke. But, there was still biologically a part of me that was aging up along with the show. So as well as some of the bad jokes that I found funny that I wish I didn't now, I still maintain that's a great cast. It was a great, great cast.
Yeah.
but it's not what I'm picking.
As your
It's not what
favorite?
I'm. No,
No, no, right.
Taxi. Taxi was the one. If I'm going to go for one that influenced me from a comedy point of
Oh,
view,
okay.
Taxi was late night. I remember thinking this has every end of humor in it, but it didn't really. Looking back, just for a young, for a kid, it was going from the ridiculous to the sublime. Whereas now I see that window was a bit narrower,
Hmm.
and it's a bit more dad humor in places. But as a kid, I really thought it did.
Can you describe Taxi to me? Just because I think I
Oh,
may have watched it before as well.
yeah, Taxi, for anybody who hasn't seen Taxi, sorry, and Mark and Mindy doesn't need a description, but Taxi, probably that little bit older, so maybe does. Taxi, most people will know it as where Danny DeVito came from. Taxi's about the taxi rank, the taxi office, so
Okay,
where all
yeah.
the taxi drivers come back to. And it's about them having their coffee and their hijinks. Danny DeVito runs the show. Christopher Lloyd, pre Back to the Future, played a madman. Mary Lou Henner played the smart, intelligent, attractive woman. Judd Hirsch played the kind of main guy. Tony Danza got his break. Speaking of who's the boss, young Tony Danza was the attractive Italian American stereotype, and then Andy Kaufman played Latka. So if you've ever seen Man on the Moon, you've seen a bit of Taxi.
Hmm. Oh, yeah, no, yeah. When you because you said the name, and I was just like, I wonder if that's the Taxi Rank one, but I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't want to step in
yeah.
and ask too much.
Great,
But yeah, that's
great
a
theme
good one.
tune. You can tell the era it was made in just by the theme tune. You're like, ah, crikey, that's a great intro. It was just a car driving along the Brooklyn Bridge, and it kind of just showed the greats in the road. While this kind of soft jazz tune that you could float away with was playing, and you're like, oh God, why don't they do that anymore? Why don't they, Paul? Why don't they make good intros and TV theme tunes anymore?
I don't know, and I think it's something that we could talk about later on, like in
Yeah,
another
certainly.
another thing. But like I do, yeah, like as in it is one of those things that like it hasn't come out too much, as in there isn't that many shows with amazing kind of theme shows, but like or theme songs. But there's been a few, and I gotta say that recently enough, HBO
Mm.
have definitely got I think the whole because they had Sopranos and they had The Wire and they had which is a Game of
Even
Thrones and
Game of
stuff like that.
Thrones to a certain extent, yeah.
Yeah, like all had really really good like
It's true. They're
theme
back to
songs
the
and
intro and a bit of song.
you know
Although Netflix did it well with Daredevil and their Street Level Heroes shows up to a point. I thought some of
mhm,
those intros were engaging. I didn't always skip them, if you know what I mean.
yeah.
Sometimes I was like, I'll watch this again because it's artfully done.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. Um,
Hmm. So it's your turn.
okay, so I'm gonna go into the animation kind of stuff because a couple of them,
Ooh.
but I'm gonna go Batman the original animated series.
That is excellent. I was a little bit older when it came along,
Hmm.
um, but it is awesome. Awesome. I was more X-Men, the animated series. But that's just because I was never there at the right time. I would have loved to watch more of Batman TAS. So
So I think like X Men was a good fan of mine as well. Once again, great theme song as well. Um, the
one of the
interesting
best.
the interesting thing about Batman the original animated series, I did not like that the first couple of things that I saw it. And it was very noir.
Oh.
Yeah, like it was
Mm.
very noir, very kind of like I guess mature kind of animation. And I was
Yeah,
used to like probably a little bit more kind of like Street Sharks and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and those kind of like animation things. But
gotcha.
Batman, it 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 brought me around, and I can tell you the exact episode, which is weirdly enough, it's an episode where a old TV show guy who's like a vigilante as well, comes back and starts muscling in on like
Oh, a competing
Batman's kind of
vigilante.
yeah, but it's like it's an old and like and it's the reason that he comes back is because a villain from the TV show starts attacking like Gotham, and it's this weird kind of like the detective part of Batman kind of finds out that it's all about the show and stuff like that, and then finds out that the other person he's had confrontation with is also the main like is the main character, not the it wasn't the cast guy because he does eventually. But it was a very interesting. That's the one that kind of brought me into it because it was very intriguing about kind of like The whole
I
detective
kind of
show.
want to watch that now
Yeah,
because
like
that
it's
is like, and that's one of the things that show did well. It
yeah,
it it didn't just look good, as in it wasn't just Art Deco noir kind of adulty in that respect. It took itself seriously enough to go, we're going to tell some stories while we're doing this.
yeah, like it was the detective part that really got me going after a while. Because like that's the biggest, like it's the biggest advantage that Batman has is he's the greatest detective in the world, and he's a fighter after, like he's a really good fighter, but it's like seconds to the detective like
Yeah,
investigation side to him, so it just brought
and
it
that's
back.
an awesome pick. And do you go back and watch any of that now? Because I probably would if I had a chance. If I have time and I see that, I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to sit down and watch them.
Yeah, I do because there's an interesting kind of thing. It goes so it go because DC is also very good with their animation universe. So it goes animated. It goes Batman animated series, the original one. The last few episodes of the Batman original animated series brings in the Justice League,
Oh, okay.
and which leads into Justice League Unlimited, which is the next DC great series as well. And the last few episodes of the Justice League breaks into two TV shows, which is Static Shock, um, which is a spin-off show which is very good on the Den and stuff, and also Batman Beyond as well.
Batman Beyond, yeah,
Mm.
that's that I know of. I didn't know about the whole Static Shock thing. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, like
See,
it's just
this is the advantage of having you here. This is something that you know really, really well. Whereas
yeah,
I just can tell you one thing: animated cars always suck. No matter how good somebody thinks they're doing it, you can tell that they're not full-on car people. Quite a lot of the animators, except
mhm,
for the best of the Batmobiles, and you know which one it is.
yeah,
I described it as if you took Art Deco and lay it down on its side. That Batmobile in the animated series speaks to car people because they understand car people as well as Batman. It is perfect. It's absolutely brilliant.
yeah. It's an incredible car. It looks so good.
It's
So
yeah, it's just proportionally it's perfect, and it speaks. It hits all the right tones. It's all the
yeah,
right tones.
yeah, and I think it was the most mature kind of animated thing because, as I said, Street Sharks, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, what was it, SWAT Cats, and Pirates of Blackwater was the other weird show that I also liked. Um,
Pirates of Blackwater.
you
Don't
should
know
look
it.
up. You should look up after this. You should look up the theme song of Pirates of Blackwater. It is amazing.
Will do.
Um,
Pirates. I'll remember to ask you after again in case I forget it. And you know what? Because we can't not talk about theme tunes. But can I use my next choice as a way to segue to
oh
that
yeah,
conversation?
you can even just
I,
talk about the theme song. If it's really good, let's do it.
it's just that because this is my last choice to throw in anyway, because I don't want to talk about the Golden Girls because I watched a crap load of that, and I'm not going to say. I'm sure it did influence me, but I'm not going to go. It's one of my favorite shows from when I was a kid. I just
Hmm.
watched it a lot because it was on a lot.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that were just on a lot in a country with very few TV channels.
Hmm.
So you watched a lot of like Cagney and Lacey, Golden Girls. Watched a lot of cool stuff, but for me, MacGyver was one of those TV shows where I was like, MacGyver is the man. He's trapped in there and he has a paperclip and he's chewing gum. I think I know what's going to happen, and when he does it, I'm still going to be impressed because he explains some science. And I have always had a thing where I'm a nerd, so that was the first kind of I'm a hero, but I'm a sciencey kind of hero. Everybody else is like, oh,
Oh no, this is a really weird. We've lost Patrick.
and my face is now unstuck. We had some technical difficulties there where my internet went down. And the cute thing is, I get to know that my face got stuck just as I was pulling what can only be described as probably bad orgasm face. If you want to know why, it's because I was talking about MacGyver being science hero guy
Hmm.
and saying that most people were kind of going, oh, science is boring. Where I was like, no, teach MacGyver, preach, do the whole thing, get us out there. So MacGyver was one of those things where I knew it was nerdy, but yet the mullet, the jacket, the whole thing, the penknife, it was all cool. And always seemed to happen in nice kind of Colorado, California, pretty national park type areas in America. So I was
Yeah,
like, it's also nice to watch.
yeah. Richard Dean Anderson was a great.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
a credible like
Like
like MacGyver.
amazing in Stargate, but he'll always be MacGyver to me. But yeah,
Yeah.
so that was theme tunes. Now theme tune, we can't sing any of the theme tunes, anybody. So you'll have to go and look them up by yourself, because otherwise
Mhm.
we'll get takedowns for my pitch perfect rendition. Um, but MacGyver, great theme tune. I mentioned Cagney and Lacey, great theme tune. We've already done the whole Magnums, A Teams. Oh, I have actually. Yeah, I've thought of one more that I want to bring up as maybe my favorite in a minute, Paul.
Oh,
When
okay.
when you're talking about yours, so that's good. I almost mentioned it. Um, it's easier to pick shows that had bad theme tunes, and I just
Mm.
don't think I watched them. I don't know
Yeah,
if I watched a TV show with a bad intro and a bad theme tune.
I can't think of one.
Either they were all really good, or the bad ones put you off the show enough that nobody watched the show and they weren't a success.
Yeah, like or just yeah, they just weren't good enough and stuff, and like even if it did have a good theme, no, if it didn't have a good theme
Yeah,
song, I guess it didn't really make well. I think it was just the age of good theme songs, though.
yeah, it was a
It's like
magical
I
time.
can't because like I can't really think of any ones that were terrible.
Well, what was the like Greatest American Hero is a theme tune that I still listen to the song. It's Believe It or Not, I'm Walking on Air, blah blah blah. And
Yeah,
it's the whole kind of who could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me, the little guy done good. I still listen to that now and again and get a small kind of tingle of you go, dude, you go. It's just one of those theme tunes. It's
yeah.
great. But so what kind of theme tunes stick out in your mind as they were the ones that did it?
Well, like yeah, I've named a couple of kind of shows that really kind of like stuck out. I'm gonna say, what is this? Odyssey,
Ulysses, the
Ulysses.
to Ulysses 2033 or 3022 or whatever it was.
Yeah, that was a
Oh,
great.
Ulysses. That
Yeah,
was
that was
Brian May, I think,
it was a great,
from Queen.
yeah, great like theme song. Yeah, amazing.
Banging tune.
Yeah, like I can't like I have I think yeah, most of the cartoons that I mentioned were really really good theme songs to it as well. But yeah, Ulysses was really really good. I think also SWAT Cats is probably one of my favorite. It doesn't have any words or anything. It's just nineties
Groovy
electric
tune.
guitar kind of like it reminds me of Top Gun and stuff like that
Oh,
because it
nice.
was SWAT Cats, the Radical Squadron. So they
Well,
flied.
we have to do our homework, and we have to do an episode that is like the day, the time, the date, the month, the year, whatever it is that the music died or the intro died, because we've talked about it. From the 70s, a long way into the 90s,
Yeah,
it was all good. Well, not all, but mostly good, and then it just fell off. So we'll have to do our homework. We're going to have to get in the room, get the red thread, do a full
yeah,
Charlie, get our everything up there, and work out where the nexus point is, where intros cease to become important and cease being absolutely brilliant.
yeah. It's
Um,
it's the question is that it was it just airtime? Was it they decided to cut down on the theme song? Just as a theory, but we can look
yeah.
into it a little bit further. Which
We'll
is
do our homework and bring it back to you, fine folks. Let us know in the comments down below if you already know the answer, to save us probably 6 months of going insane thinking that we found out who really killed JFK
it's
and why
just
they took the theme tune.
yeah.
So,
So
Paul,
I'll
what's
just
what's your show of choice, buddy?
well,
Oh,
just to
sorry.
quickly, I'll just do an honorary mention, because on the back of Richard Dean Anderson and MacGyver, Stargate was also a big influencer for me as well for the kind of thing. But I was it was that was kind of like I guess mid teens kind of area to
Yeah,
late teens and stuff, and because that show went far into kind of like into like later kind of life as well because it
yeah.
was such a long
And I'd be
series.
pushing it if I said I was a kid when it started, unfortunately. But
So
still watch the hell out of it like I was a kid, because I love that show.
it's a great show. And my top pick, it's my favorite TV show as a child, um, is a comedy, which I said before. I also think it had a decent theme song. Now, it probably wasn't the most traditional theme song. Like I guess, oh well, let's say that it wasn't a theme song. It was more the opening, like opening credits or title screen was great. and it was done by it was done by an English comedian, it was Mr. Bean.
Mr. Bean, of
Yeah,
course,
it was
of
my
course.
that's probably my favorite childhood show. Because I think I got a lot of comedic chops from a lot of comedic like and humor styles
Yeah,
from Mr. Bean. I really liked Ron Atkinson, and that then led me into his
he's a
solo
genius.
shows and everything. Yeah, like it was incredible. The theme is essentially just has Mr. Bean falling to earth.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
and just you hear angels singing or something like that, and it's like there's big
that is
controversies.
exactly it.
There's a big controversy about, not controversy, but a huge big kind of debate going on about if it's aliens or if it's angels or something like that. And I believe that there was something about it was something about him it being angels and stuff like that. So
Oh
uh,
well, can I ask, because Mr. Bean again? This is where the age gap does kick in. I was, you know, I was that bit older, but I still watched Mr. Bean. Weirdly, Rowan Atkinson for me was a huge part of my life, from like not the 9 o'clock news and lots of very early stuff. But then he was Blackadder primarily to me,
yeah.
and then Mr. Bean came along when I was a bit older, and I was like, Rowan Atkinson's doing a thing where he doesn't talk. That's weird.
Hmm.
But rapidly, you're like, oh my god, Rowan Atkinson is all kinds of genius. Like he's like, wow. Now the thing that will always stick with me for Mr. Bean is it was popular in my house. It was something that you know, anybody in the room could watch. You know, that kind of TV,
Yeah.
where like I did not really gel with some of the other members of my household as far as their viewing choices or habits. Um, but you know, my dad could sit through that, and he thought it was funny, and I could get the, you know, some of the genius to it too. Was it like that for you? Was Rowan Atkinson doing a Mr. Bean? Was it one of those memories where not only were you enjoying it, but maybe there were other happy, laughing voices around you?
Like I think it was it. Mr. Bean is a very universal thing because it also like Ron Atkinson also said how popular it is like overseas and stuff because it is pretty much a silent kind of character and stuff like that,
Yeah,
but it is universal kind of like universal humor, like
yeah,
particularly the Christmas specials, the Nativity play, meeting lining up to meet the Queen and stuff like that, were all like universal kind of things. Like it's just someone getting in a little bit of trouble, like, and then it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, kind of thing. But they kind of roll with this.
yeah.
Is very bad or very good. So
Yeah,
yeah,
he's a much more advanced Mr. Magoo from way back. Yeah, I remember. I think the one that left the most longest lasting impression on me was the painting the room, where he tries to paint with an explosive in the paint can.
yeah,
And I remember thinking that's genius, because everybody knows it's really stupid, but there's a small part of everybody that's like, but what would happen if you tried it? And it's a
yeah,
universal, it transcends language. And there's a great kind of course, this isn't going to work, but how are they going to make it funny as to how many different levels it doesn't work? And I really enjoyed that, simple on the surface. But you know what? There's a lot of genius here in how universal this is.
yeah. Because the really nice thing is that that episode is great because it's like the payoff for that bit isn't that the house is ruined or anything or like it explodes or something. It's the guy going in to get his hat, the silhouette of him getting his hat
Yeah.
from the shelf thing, which is great.
Yeah.
Um, and so like yeah, it's completely universal, and
Yeah.
you might not be able to 100% see the payoff to or the punchline to the jokes and stuff like that, which I think is also very good because like slapstick at that time or very body esque humor tended to be quite easy to realize what the punchline was, whereas Ron Atkinson's kind of Mr. Bean was very good at kind of like either
Yeah.
going to the more extreme like option or kind of like going to maybe another specific way that you didn't really think about it, kind of because he's such a weird, if that person actually exists, like I don't understand why someone hasn't recorded him constantly and made a million, like made millions.
Well, there's a level of genius to the stupidity as well. So if that person exists, they probably work for NASA, and everybody's like, yeah, don't let anybody know about him because he's brilliant when he's not tearing the place down.
Hmm.
I've always kind of my biggest the one liner that I give as to why Mr. Bean shouldn't be underestimated. People who would only watch at the time, people who would have only watched adult TV shows that were funny because they were very traditional old, the catchphrase TV shows where
Hmm.
somebody wanted to have a Victor Meldrew, I don't believe it. The people who were watching that and would only laugh waiting for the catchphrase, the people who like their comfort comedy.
Yeah.
And I know I'm sounding quite derisive. Look, everybody has their own thing, but even those people were attracted to Mr. Bean because, and he didn't have a catchphrase. He did have a familiarity, but and people are always like, oh, well, it's just familiarity. No, you nailed it a while ago. It's universality. There's very few things that can transcend every level of border or division between people and be like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's where the genius lies. I'm really glad that was your top pick because now I went the other way with my top pick. I went to the
Hmm.
other end of the age spectrum for me. I went back and I was like, okay, well, I've got to have something that represents the car part of me. But weirdly, as you know, I'm a car guy. And I've
Hmm.
told you if there's only one thing I would ever do if I got really, really rich, of all the cars I love, I would actually buy a truck. Even though I'm not a truck guy, it's because of the Fall Guy. The Fall Guy was a TV show for anybody who hasn't seen it. Wait till you hear this description and then you'll go, of course. It is pure distilled 80s. Colt Seavers, that name,
Colt
Colt
Seavers.
Seavers is a stunt man who makes money in the rest of the time when he's not picking up, gag jobs doing stunts. He is a bounty hunter or a bond bailsman. So he brings people who've skipped bail back. And Colt Seavers has his stunt truck that does lots of jumps and has a big weird, like his stunt crest on the front of it. He's played by the $6 million man, for starters, who also sings the theme tune, which is great. And he has his sidekick is his cousin Howie. Howie, who is the young, dumb, kind of wants to be like Colt, never quite does it. He's the scrappy dude to the Scooby or the,
Hmm.
the whatever the underdog might be.
Yeah.
Um, and it is just it's like somebody wrote down the 80s, took a little bit of everything, put it together, and then put one of the most boss ass vehicles ever into it and consistently fired the thing into the air, but not in a Dukes of Hazzard kind of this is ridiculous way. In a we actually have a good reason to fire this thing into the air.
Yeah.
He's
Like
chasing
that's.
somebody over terrain, or he is a stuntman, and that's why there's a jump.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's very easy to just be like, yeah, stuntman. You know, very good.
So Fall Guy, I rest my case. Most 80s, it's not the best thing or the most influential thing, but it was one of my most favorite things as a kid. And looking back, it has more slices of everything than almost any other TV show I watched.
Well, there you go.
And Heather Thomas was in it, so there's also that part of as you get older as a boy thing. Yeah, there was it was the 80s. We weren't enlightened people then either.
Hmm.
So of course, there was for some reason the two guys just happened to have an extremely attractive friend who was on camera a lot in tight jeans. Or
Okay,
yeah, stop me now.
I'll
You know where
bail
this is
you
going.
out. I'll bail you out.
Thank you, thank
Which
you.
would so what you get? Let us know if you have any of your favorite kind of children TV shows that we haven't mentioned or anything like that. We would love to hear about them. Which is and also talk to us about the is there really like a theme song thing that we will probably do research and do an episode on it. But if there's a
Mm.
theme song that you definitely want us to feature and kind of talk about and stuff like put it down in the comments down below or tweet it out to us or Facebook us. It's our socials are down there.
Yep.
Kind of thing. So yeah. Was just anything else to add, Patrick?
No, just thank you. Apologies that my face froze at some point. I don't know how much of that's going to stay in. Technical difficulties be damned. MacGyver was worth it. MacGyver was worth restarting the episode for.
It was. It was certainly was. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share us out, all that kind of good stuff. I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it. You can say it.
He What are you not saying, Paul? Is it about doing something to the analytics? I'll let it go because I think I snuck it in earlier.
You did
So I
sneak it
think
in
it's already in
earlier.
there. Okay.
You
Okay.
did. So,
Well, on that note, then, I've been Patrick.
and I've been Paul. We've been Heroes
We've
Out.
been Heroes Out.
See
And we
you
tried to
later.
synchronize. We'll talk to you next time.
It's so hard with lag. It's so hard,
It's terrible.
you know. But
Bye,
we get by
everybody.
it. See you later.